You have probably told yourself more than once, "I'll start when I'm ready." It feels responsible, it feels logical, and yet if you look back, you'll notice something troubling. Most of the things you've postponed in life never got started at all. That's because readiness is not a destination you arrive at. It's not an exact date on the calendar, not a signal from the world, and certainly not a sudden wave of confidence that washes over you one morning. The reason you never feel ready is because your mind is designed to protect you from uncertainty, and uncertainty is the very soil in which all progress grows. The part of you that demands readiness before action is the same part that wants comfort above all else. And comfort, while pleasant, is the enemy of every great change you've ever imagined for yourself. If you understand this truth, you can begin to see that waiting to feel ready is simply another way of waiting to remain the same. Readiness is a story you've been taught since childhood. You were told to study until you were ready for the test, to practice until you were ready for the game, to learn until you were ready for the job. But in real life, the test often comes before the lesson. The opportunities that shape your life rarely arrive on a schedule, and they never come with a warning label that says, "Now is the time." Life presents the chance first and leaves it up to you to decide if you'll grow into it. The people who move forward don't feel ready, they feel willing to step into something before they have mastered it, willing to trust that skill and confidence will develop along the way. They understand that readiness is not a prerequisite for action, it's a result of action. You become ready by moving forward, not by waiting on the sidelines. The illusion of readiness is dangerous because it can disguise fear as preparation. It whispers, "Just a little longer," and convinces you that delay is wise when it's really avoidance. You tell yourself you're gathering more information, refining your plan, waiting for a sign, but deep down you know the truth. You're stalling because starting feels risky. But here's the paradox. The risk doesn't shrink while you wait, it grows. Every day you hesitate. The starting line feels farther away, the stakes feel higher, and the imagined obstacles get bigger in your mind. Those who break this cycle don't necessarily have less fear, they just stop giving fear the final vote. They act in the presence of fear. They realize that the only thing worse than failing is never beginning, because at least failure can teach you something. Hesitation teaches nothing. Another reason you never feel ready is because you've been taught to confuse confidence with capability. You think you must feel confident before you can begin, when in reality confidence is the byproduct of capability, and capability is built through doing. You cannot think your way into confidence any more than you can read your way into swimming. You must get into the water. The man or woman who waits until they feel certain will still be waiting years from now, while the one who begins uncertainly will be moving forward, skill growing with every step. This is why so many people who seem fearless are not actually without fear. They've simply trained themselves to begin before they feel like experts. The truth no one tells you is that feeling unready is a sign you're on the right track. It means you're stepping into something that will expand you. It means you're stretching beyond the limits of your current knowledge and ability. If you felt completely prepared, it would mean you were still inside your comfort zone and nothing remarkable grows there. The successful reframe readiness entirely. They don't ask, "Am I ready?" They ask, "Am I willing to grow into this?" That shift changes everything. It takes the pressure off perfection and replaces it with a commitment to progress. You stop waiting for the perfect version of yourself to appear and instead start building that version step by step. You also never feel ready because you're imagining that the path will feel smooth once you begin. You picture a straight line between where you are and where you want to be, and when you see obstacles or uncertainty ahead, you take it as proof that you should wait. But obstacles are not signs you're unready, they're signs you're on the path. Every goal worth achieving comes with challenges designed to develop the very skills you will need to sustain it. The person who insists on clearing all obstacles before they begin will never begin, because life will always present another one. The person who begins despite them will find that they gain strength with every challenge overcome, and in time the obstacles themselves become proof that they are advancing. There's another subtle trap that keeps you from feeling ready. The belief that readiness comes from external validation. You want someone else to tell you it's time, to reassure you that you're qualified, to give you permission to move forward. But here's the truth. No one else can feel your readiness for you. Even if they told you you're ready, you'd still doubt it, because readiness is not something granted, it's something claimed. The people who appear to have perfect timing didn't wait for someone to hand them approval. They decided for themselves and let action be the proof. Once you understand this, you stop looking for the green light from others and realize you've been holding the switch all along. Perhaps the greatest reason you never feel ready is because readiness is not an emotion, it's a choice. If you treat it like a feeling, you'll keep waiting for it to arrive, not realizing that feelings follow decisions, not the other way around. Think about the times you've done something difficult. You probably didn't feel ready then either, yet you acted, and the feeling of readiness came after. This is the secret that high achievers understand. They reverse the order. They decide first, act second, and feel ready last. Waiting for the feeling is a luxury they can't afford because they know that in the time it takes to wait for certainty, the opportunity may be gone. So if you've been waiting to feel ready before you start that business, apply for that position, make that call, or take that leap, understand this. The readiness you're waiting for is not coming in the form you expect. It will not arrive like a package on your doorstep. It will show up in your hands after you've already begun, after you've stumbled, after you've adjusted, after you've proven to yourself that you can take action without a guarantee. And when you reach that point, you will see that readiness was never about the absence of fear, it was about the presence of commitment. Once you grasp that, you'll stop waiting for the signal and start being the signal. You'll stop looking for the perfect moment and start making the moment perfect by moving forward now. You never feel ready because your mind was not built to make you extraordinary. It was built to keep you safe. Its first instinct is survival, not success. Safety is predictable. Safety is routine. Safety keeps you inside the walls you've already built, even if those walls are closing in on you. The moment you think about stepping outside them, your brain starts whispering, wait until you're prepared, wait until you're sure, wait until there's no risk. That whisper has been mistaken for wisdom for most of your life. But it's not wisdom, it's resistance. The people who move forward in life learn to hear that voice, recognize it for what it is, and act anyway. They understand that fear and readiness will never arrive in the same package. If you wait until fear disappears, you'll be waiting until your life is over. Another reason you never feel ready is because you've built your self-image on yesterday's evidence. You judge today's potential by yesterday's performance. Every missed opportunity, every failure, every hesitation becomes a piece of proof that you're not ready now. But the truth is, who you are today is not who you were then. You have more experience. You've survived more. You've learned more, yet you carry old labels like they are still accurate. This is mental clutter of the highest order. It's like trying to see the horizon while wearing someone else's fogged glasses. The successful throw those glasses away. They understand that the moment you decide to act, you begin rewriting your self-image. You don't wait until you believe you're ready. You use the act of starting to build the belief. You also never feel ready because you've made the mistake of thinking preparation eliminates uncertainty. Preparation reduces uncertainty. It doesn't erase it. No matter how much you prepare, there will be gaps in your knowledge, unexpected obstacles, and moments where you feel exposed. That is not proof you're unready. It's proof you're alive. The people who achieve extraordinary things are not the ones who eliminate all risk before they start. They're the ones who accept that uncertainty is part of the price and proceed anyway. They trust that their ability to adapt will matter more than their ability to predict. In fact, adaptability becomes their real preparation because no plan survives first contact with reality unchanged. Then there's the trap of overvaluing the opinions of others. Many never feel ready because they're silently waiting for approval. They want their friends, their family, their mentors to say, yes, now's the time. They want to see excitement in the eyes of those around them before they act. But waiting for universal agreement is the fastest way to never begin, because you will always find someone who doubts you, someone who thinks it's too soon, someone who reminds you of your limitations. The person meant to rise understands that readiness is an internal contract, not a public vote. You don't need everyone to believe you can do it. You need to decide you will, and let your results do the convincing. A deeper reason you never feel ready is that you're comparing your starting point to someone else's middle. You see people who have been at their craft for years with polished skills and confidence earned through experience, and you hold yourself up against that image. Of course you feel unready. You're measuring your day one against their day 1,000, but the only fair comparison is between who you are now and who you were yesterday. Every master was once a beginner. Every confident leader once stood where you are now, unsure and hesitant. They became who they are not by avoiding that discomfort, but by walking straight into it and letting it forge them. You may also never feel ready because you've linked readiness to the absence of mistakes. You imagine that when you're ready, you'll execute perfectly, without error, without misstep. This belief is not only unrealistic, it's destructive. Mistakes are not proof of unreadiness. They are the tuition you pay for mastery. The successful begin knowing they will make errors, but they see those errors as feedback, not failure. They move faster because they aren't trying to avoid every wrong turn. They're trying to take enough turns to learn the right way forward. And in doing so, they gain an advantage over the perfectionist who is still at the starting line, rehearsing in their mind how to avoid any flaw. There is also the illusion that once you feel ready, you will feel that way forever. This is why so many people start and then stop. They mistake a temporary surge of courage for a permanent state. Readiness, even when it appears, comes and goes. If you rely on it to stay consistent, your progress will be erratic. The people who build lasting success rely on habits, not feelings. They structure their environment and routines so that action happens whether they feel ready or not. This removes the need to constantly search for the emotional high of readiness because they've built a system that moves them forward automatically. Finally, understand that the feeling of unreadiness is not your enemy, it's your signal. It means you are standing on the edge of something that matters. It means you are about to enter a space where you will grow. If you can reframe that tension as an invitation instead of a warning, you'll stop running from it and start seeking it. Because the truth is, you were never meant to feel ready in the way you imagine. You were meant to feel the resistance, to choose anyway, and to discover that readiness was something you could create, not something you had to wait for. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you'll stop postponing the life you're capable of living. One of the most overlooked reasons you never feel ready is that you confuse clarity with certainty. You think that before you begin, you must see the entire path laid out before you, with no blind corners and no surprises. But clarity and certainty are not the same. Clarity is knowing the next step you must take. Certainty is knowing exactly how every step will unfold. You can have the first without ever having the second. The man or woman who insists on certainty before beginning will stay locked in place forever, because life will never give them a complete map. The people who move forward accept that the fog is part of the landscape. They don't wait for it to lift, they step into it, trusting that the road will reveal itself as they walk. They understand that progress is directional, not predictive, and that the way forward is made by moving, not by standing still. Another reason readiness feels so elusive is that you've mistaken preparation for progress. You've been busy gathering tools, studying strategies, and lining up resources, and it all feels productive. But deep down, you know you've been living in rehearsal mode. You are perfecting the warm-up but avoiding the performance. This is the trap of almost ready, and it's dangerous because it rewards you with the temporary satisfaction of activity without requiring the discomfort of commitment. The successful know that preparation has a purpose, to equip you for action, not to replace it. They draw a hard line between enough preparation to move forward and endless preparation that becomes a shield against starting. You also never feel ready because you underestimate the compounding power of small beginnings. You think readiness means starting big, making a dramatic entrance, announcing your goals and executing flawlessly from day one. But most meaningful endeavors begin quietly, often without fanfare, and grow through steady, almost invisible progress. When you believe readiness requires a grand launch, you set the bar so high that you talk yourself out of even trying. Those who achieve extraordinary results know that small, consistent steps are the foundation of momentum. They don't confuse a humble start with an unworthy one. They understand that readiness grows not from size but from consistency, and they embrace the truth that a start that feels too small is often the most sustainable kind. Then there's the mental trap of waiting to feel unafraid. Fear is often interpreted as a lack of readiness, when in reality, it's a sign you're heading towards something significant. If you felt nothing at all, no nerves, no hesitation, it would likely mean you're staying in territory you've already mastered. The successful reframe fear as confirmation. They see it as evidence that they are on the edge of growth. They don't wait for fear to fade. They train themselves to move alongside it. Over time, they discover that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. And once you stop treating fear as an obstacle to readiness, you stop giving it the power to keep you idle. Another subtle barrier to feeling ready is the belief that you must already be the person capable of succeeding before you begin. You imagine that starting requires the mindset, skills, and habits of your future self, and since you don't have them yet, you wait. But the truth is, those qualities are not prerequisites, they are products. You become that person through the very act of starting, through the challenges you face, the mistakes you make, and the lessons you learn along the way. The person who begins imperfectly will surpass the person who waits to begin perfectly because action reshapes identity faster than thought alone ever could. This is why the phrase "act as if" has such enduring truth. It's not about pretending, it's about practicing your way into the role you're meant to fill. You may also never feel ready because you've learned to value comfort more than capability. You've built routines that are predictable, controllable, and safe. Anything that threatens that stability feels like a warning sign. But comfort zones are not where readiness is found. They are where readiness goes to die. The individual committed to growth learns to seek challenge, not avoid it. They deliberately put themselves in situations where they must adapt, stretch, and figure things out under pressure. This exposure strengthens their capacity to act without waiting for readiness to arrive. Over time, they begin to see discomfort not as a signal to stop, but as a sign they're exactly where they should be. And by repeatedly choosing challenge over comfort, they train themselves to treat readiness as a decision, not a feeling. Another overlooked reason readiness is rare is that people think it must arrive fully formed. In truth, readiness is built in layers. The first layer is the decision to begin. The second is the action you take. The third is the confidence gained from those actions. And the more layers you stack, the more solid your foundation becomes. But if you never place that first layer, nothing else can be built. Those who wait to feel entirely prepared are essentially waiting for the top floor of a building to appear before laying the foundation. The successful accept that readiness is constructed in real time, with real effort, and often in imperfect conditions. Finally, you never feel ready because you've been told readiness is a gift, something that arrives like inspiration. But readiness is rarely given. It is claimed. It's the product of a decision made in the face of uncertainty, backed by the discipline to follow through no matter how incomplete you feel. The sooner you stop waiting for the signal and start being the signal, the sooner you'll discover that readiness was never about having every answer. It was about being willing to search for them as you move. And when you understand this, you realize that the very act of beginning is the most powerful declaration of readiness you will ever make. One of the biggest reasons you never feel ready is because you've built an image of readiness that doesn't exist. You picture a future version of yourself who feels no fear, no doubt, and no uncertainty. Someone who wakes up every morning with absolute conviction. That image is comforting, but it's a fantasy. Even the most accomplished people you admire still experience hesitation. The difference is, they don't confuse hesitation with unreadiness. They've learned that readiness is not a permanent state you enter, it's a fleeting moment you create. They cultivate it daily through habits, through clarity, and through action. They've stopped chasing the mythical day when all doubt vanishes and have instead mastered the ability to move forward while doubt remains. Another reason readiness stays out of reach is because you've tied it to the idea of a perfect plan. You believe that if you could just design the flawless strategy, you would finally feel prepared to begin. But life has a way of shredding perfect plans. Conditions change, unexpected obstacles appear, and details shift without warning. The truth is, you don't need a perfect plan to begin, you need a plan you're willing to adapt. The person who insists on perfection before they start will always be overtaken by the one who starts with a flexible framework and improves it along the way. Readiness grows faster in motion than it ever will in contemplation, and perfection is a trap disguised as preparation. You also never feel ready because you mistake information for transformation. You consume books, videos, and advice, telling yourself that the more you know, the more prepared you will be. But knowledge that isn't applied becomes mental clutter. It sits in your mind as potential that never turns into capability. The people who build extraordinary results do not know everything before they start. They simply begin applying what they know and expand their knowledge in the process. They understand that transformation comes from experience, and experience only comes from doing. The longer you delay action in favor of gathering more information, the further away readiness will feel. Another subtle form of resistance is the belief that readiness is something you will feel in your body as certainty. You think it will be a moment of calm confidence, an absence of nerves, an internal yes so strong it silences every other voice. But often the first step is taken with shaking hands, a racing heart, and a mind full of questions. That physical tension isn't a sign you're unready, it's a sign you're invested. It means the outcome matters enough to trigger your survival instincts. The person who moves anyway learns to reinterpret those signals, seeing them not as danger but as proof they're stepping into a defining moment. You may also never feel ready because you've misjudged the role of mistakes in your growth. You've been taught to see errors as evidence that you weren't prepared, when in reality, they are part of becoming prepared. Every misstep is a data point. Every failure is a correction in disguise. Those who succeed at the highest levels know they will make mistakes before they begin, but they start anyway because they know the sooner they make them, the sooner they'll learn. They refuse to let the fear of imperfection keep them frozen because they understand that imperfection is the only way to mastery. Then there's the habit of predicting failure before you've even begun. You create mental highlight reels of every possible way things could go wrong, and you let those predictions dictate whether you start. This is the illusion of caution. It convinces you that imagining disaster protects you from it, when in reality it prevents you from ever testing what's possible. The successful replace this with the discipline of testing reality. They take calculated risks, knowing that real feedback is more valuable than imagined outcomes. They'd rather fail in action than fail in hesitation, because at least action moves them somewhere new. You also never feel ready because you tie the idea of starting to a sense of complete alignment in every area of your life. You think your finances, your relationships, your health, and your mindset all need to be perfectly in place before you can begin. But the truth is, life is rarely that cooperative. Progress is made in imperfect conditions, and often the very act of moving forward is what begins to align the rest of your life. Waiting for every variable to settle before you start is like waiting for the wind to stop before you set sail. You may be waiting forever. Those who achieve meaningful goals accept that they will begin with loose ends, but trust that they can tie them as they go. Finally, you never feel ready because you haven't decided that action is the starting point, not the reward. You keep waiting for readiness to give you permission, when in truth, readiness is built by the very act of moving forward. It's not a prerequisite, it's a product. The moment you accept that, the tension of waiting dissolves. You stop asking, "Am I ready?" and start asking, "Am I willing?" Willing to step forward before you have every answer. Willing to begin before you feel certain. Willing to grow into the person who can handle what comes next. That decision, more than any plan or preparation, is what will finally move you from hesitation to momentum, and from momentum to mastery. One of the strongest reasons you never feel ready is because you've built an expectation that starting should feel comfortable. You've grown accustomed to associating the right decision with the right feeling, so when the discomfort of the unknown sets in, you interpret it as a warning to stop. But in truth, that discomfort is a companion to growth. It's the natural tension of stepping into a role you haven't yet mastered, a signal that you are stretching into territory that will require more of you than your current habits and skills can supply. Those who break through understand that discomfort is not danger, it's data. It tells you you're moving beyond the stale air of routine and into the fresh air of possibility. The sooner you can reframe that sensation, the sooner you'll stop waiting for comfort to signal readiness, and the sooner you'll begin to use discomfort as proof you are exactly where you should be. Another reason readiness feels so distant is because you've tied it to approval. You want someone to look you in the eye and say, "You're ready, you'll succeed." You want the green light from a mentor, a friend, or the world before you take the first step. But this craving for external validation is a trap, because it makes your willingness to act dependent on the opinions of others, opinions that will never be unanimous, often not even informed. The truth is, no one else can feel your readiness for you. Even if they gave you their blessing, you'd still have to face the uncertainty yourself. The people who move ahead without waiting for validation are not arrogant. They're simply realistic enough to know that approval doesn't remove risk, and risk is where growth lives. They accept that readiness is an internal contract, one that only they can sign. You also never feel ready because you've rehearsed failure far more than you've rehearsed success. You play out every scenario where things go wrong, picturing yourself embarrassed, rejected, or defeated. This mental habit strengthens hesitation because your brain begins to treat those imagined outcomes as real threats. But just as fear can be rehearsed, so can courage. The most effective people deliberately picture themselves handling challenges well. They imagine adapting, problem-solving, and persisting until they succeed. They give their mind a reference point for capability instead of collapse. This doesn't erase the possibility of difficulty, it simply trains the mind to see difficulty as something survivable. And once the mind believes it can survive, it stops demanding perfect readiness as a condition for action. Another subtle layer of unreadiness comes from the myth that you must commit for life before you begin. You feel like starting a new project, a business, or a change means locking yourself in forever. That pressure creates paralysis because you fear the permanence of your decision. The truth is, most beginnings are experiments, not life sentences. You can adjust, pivot, or even stop altogether if you discover it's not for you. But you cannot improve or decide with clarity from the outside. You need first-hand experience. Those who move forward understand that starting is simply the act of gathering real data. Every step you take makes the decision sharper and your direction clearer. The willingness to treat beginnings as experiments turns the pressure of perfection into the freedom to explore. Then there's the trap of waiting for inspiration to strike before you move. You've been conditioned to believe that action follows motivation, but in reality, motivation often follows action. The person meant to succeed doesn't wait for the perfect mood to begin, they begin, and in the process create the very momentum that makes them feel inspired. They know that if they depend on feelings to dictate movement, they will move rarely and inconsistently. They replace the pursuit of inspiration with the discipline of initiation, because they've learned that doing the work is the surest way to summon the energy to keep doing the work. This reframing allows them to act even on days when they feel flat, knowing that motion itself will reignite drive. A deeper reason you never feel ready is because you haven't yet learned to separate self-worth from performance. You treat the outcome of your actions as a referendum on your value as a person. This creates enormous pressure to start only when success is guaranteed, something that never happens. The successful break this link. They see each effort as an experiment, each outcome as feedback. Wins and losses become information, not identity. This mental separation is what gives them the freedom to act without waiting for perfect conditions, because they're not risking who they are, they're simply testing what works. And by removing their identity from the outcome, they lower the emotional cost of beginning, making readiness less of a barrier and more of a choice. You also never feel ready because you've convinced yourself that your adaptability is limited, that if something unexpected happens, you won't know how to handle it. This belief makes you over-prepare for hypothetical problems and delay action until you feel you've covered every scenario. But readiness is not built by eliminating the unknown, it's built by meeting it. The more you act without all the answers, the more evidence you collect that you can figure things out as you go. And once you've experienced this enough times, you stop demanding certainty as the price of admission. You start trusting that no matter what comes, you'll be able to adjust, endure, and continue forward. That trust is what turns unreadiness into action and hesitation into momentum. Finally, you never feel ready because you're waiting for a single, irreversible leap, when what's really required is a series of small, deliberate moves. You imagine readiness as a giant moment of transformation, but in reality, it's built through hundreds of quiet decisions to keep going. Each small step lowers the resistance to the next one. Each choice to act without certainty strengthens the muscle of resilience. And over time, those small steps accumulate into a level of capability that makes readiness irrelevant, because by then you've proven to yourself that you don't need to feel ready to create something extraordinary. You simply need to begin and to keep beginning until the path you once feared becomes the ground you confidently walk on every day. One of the core reasons you never feel ready is because you treat the gap between where you are and where you want to be as a flaw rather than as the natural terrain of growth. You look at the distance and think, I can't start until I've closed this, not realizing that the very act of starting is what begins to close it. Every skill you've ever mastered, every confidence you've ever built, came from moving through that gap, not from standing on the edge of it and waiting for it to shrink. The successful reframe the gap as the proving ground. They understand that you're not supposed to feel ready while you're in it, you're supposed to feel stretched, and that stretch is exactly what makes you capable of carrying the weight of your next chapter. Another reason readiness escapes you is because you're relying on willpower alone. You think you can force yourself into action through sheer determination, but willpower is a limited resource. On the days when it runs low, hesitation rushes back in, and you tell yourself it's because you're not ready. But the truth is, readiness has less to do with willpower and more to do with systems. The people who consistently move forward don't leave action up to daily moods. They build structures that make the right choice easier and the wrong choice harder. They schedule, they prepare environments, they automate habits. This way, even when they don't feel ready, the system carries them forward. Without a system, unreadiness is an easy excuse. With one, it loses its power. You may also never feel ready because you've mistaken other people's starting points for your own. You see someone launch with resources, skills, and confidence that took them years to build, and you measure your beginning against their peak. This comparison distorts your perspective. It makes you think readiness is a standard you're failing to meet, when in truth everyone begins at zero in something. The successful know that the only comparison worth making is between your current self and your past self. They track progress over perfection, knowing that readiness emerges not from matching someone else's pace, but from honoring your own. Then there's the clutter of mental rehearsal gone wrong. Visualization is powerful, but many misuse it by repeatedly imagining obstacles without ever picturing solutions. They run the worst-case scenarios over and over, building a mental library of reasons not to begin. This is self-sabotage disguised as preparation. The person who is meant to succeed balances realism with constructive imagination. They anticipate challenges, yes, but they also picture themselves responding well, recovering quickly, and finding a way through. By rehearsing competence instead of collapse, they create the mental readiness they were missing. Another reason you never feel ready is because you've linked readiness to control. You believe that when you're ready, you'll have full control over every variable: timing, environment, resources, even other people's behavior. But the truth is, you will never have complete control. The most you can control is your own preparation, mindset, and response. The people who achieve great things understand this. They stop waiting for the uncontrollable to align and instead focus on strengthening the parts they do control. They prepare their skills, manage their time, and choose their focus. They know that if they can control themselves, they can navigate anything else. There's also the trap of overestimating the cost of starting and underestimating the cost of waiting. You think about the money, time, or effort required to begin, and it feels overwhelming, but you forget to calculate the cost of another year of inaction, the opportunities you'll miss, the skills you won't develop, the confidence you won't build. The successful weigh both sides, and when they do, they often find that the cost of waiting is far greater than the cost of starting. This shift in perspective turns unreadiness from a reason to pause into a reason to move. A deeper layer to why you never feel ready is that you've built an identity around hesitation. You've been the one who's still thinking about it for so long that starting would feel like breaking character. This is why so many never begin. They're attached to the safety of their current identity, even if it's holding them back. The one who moves forward understands that identity is fluid. They choose to upgrade it to become the person who acts, the person who begins. And every time they do, the role of unready loses its grip. Finally, you never feel ready because you think readiness is the absence of uncertainty. But uncertainty isn't the enemy, it's the arena. Every meaningful accomplishment exists because someone stepped into uncertainty and refused to step back out. They accepted that readiness isn't a state you wait for, it's a state you earn by acting without all the answers. And once you've done that enough times, you realize you don't need readiness to start, you need starting to build readiness. That's when the waiting ends and your life starts to move in the direction you've been thinking about all along. One of the most persistent reasons you never feel ready is because you've tied readiness to a fantasy of perfect alignment. You imagine a day when your finances, health, confidence, skills, relationships, and opportunities will all be in flawless order. Only then, you tell yourself, will it be time to act. But life rarely hands you that level of coordination. In fact, it's often the act of moving forward that begins to align those areas in the first place. Waiting for perfection before starting is like waiting for every traffic light in a city to turn green before leaving your driveway. It will never happen. Those who succeed accept that they will begin with loose ends, unresolved details, and uncertainty. They trust themselves to tie knots as they go, to adjust while in motion, and to become more aligned through the process itself. Another reason readiness is so rare is because you think it should feel like calm confidence. You expect the first step to be taken without racing thoughts, sweaty palms, or a voice in the back of your mind asking if you're making a mistake. But more often than not, the first step is accompanied by tension. That tension doesn't mean you're unready, it means you care. It means the outcome matters enough to trigger your instincts. The successful have learned to act in that tension, to treat it as a signpost rather than a stop sign. They see it as a threshold, proof that they are standing at the entrance to something that will grow them. You also never feel ready because you've underestimated your ability to learn under pressure. You assume that you must have all the skills in place before you start, so you overtrain, overthink, and overplan. But many of the skills you'll need can only be developed in real time, under real conditions. The act of beginning creates the urgency that sharpens focus and accelerates learning. This is why those who take action often surpass those who are preparing indefinitely. Their environment forces them to adapt, and adaptation is one of the fastest teachers in existence. Then there's the trap of defining readiness by the absence of mistakes. You tell yourself, I'll start when I'm sure I won't mess up, but mistakes are built into the process of mastery. They are not proof that you shouldn't have started, they are proof that you did. Every skill, every success, every strength you've ever had was forged in a sequence of trial, error, and adjustment. The only way to avoid mistakes entirely is to avoid action entirely, and that's the surest way to stay stuck. Those who understand this begin knowing that missteps are not a detour, they are the path. Another reason readiness keeps its distance is because you've tied it to certainty of outcome. You want a guarantee before you begin, but guarantees don't exist in anything worth doing. The most you can have is a strong intention, a good plan, and the willingness to adapt. The successful shift their focus from guaranteeing the result to guaranteeing their effort. They commit to showing up fully, knowing that outcome will take care of itself if they keep refining their approach. By doing this, they remove the false requirement of certainty and replace it with the real requirement of persistence. You may also never feel ready because you've been taught to see readiness as a feeling rather than a choice. Feelings are unreliable, they shift with mood, weather, and circumstance. If you wait for a consistent emotional state before you act, you'll act rarely. But if you decide that readiness is a decision, a line you cross in your mind, then you gain the ability to move regardless of mood. The successful treat readiness like a switch they control, not a cloud that drifts overhead when the conditions are right. There's also the hidden cost of waiting that erodes readiness. Every time you delay action, you strengthen the habit of hesitation. It becomes easier to postpone, easier to tell yourself you'll do it later. Before long, unreadiness isn't just a feeling, it's your default state. The only way to reverse this is through immediate, even imperfect action. Each time you act without feeling ready, you chip away at the reflex to wait, and you replace it with the reflex to move. Over time, this rewires your self-image from someone who hesitates to someone who begins. Finally, you never feel ready because you're waiting for the fear to go away, when in truth it's the act of moving that shrinks the fear. The first step is always the hardest, not because it requires the most skill, but because it requires the most courage. Once you take it, momentum starts to work in your favor. The terrain that looked impossible from a distance becomes manageable up close. And as you keep moving, you'll realize that readiness was never a starting condition. It was a byproduct of your willingness to start without it. And that is the real secret. The moment you decide to begin without waiting for the perfect day, you've already done the hardest part. The rest is simply building on that decision until action becomes identity and progress becomes inevitable.